Hello, welcome to History Tea, a channel where I spill the tea on history. Today's video will be about the Night Witches. The Night Witches were Russian female pilots during World War II, and don't worry, the Russians were anti-Nazi. Real quick, on a more serious note, this past Sunday was actually Holocaust Remembrance Day, and on that day in 1945, the Soviet troops entered Auschwitz, freeing more than 7,000 survivors. So this kind of goes with that a little bit. Yeah, I thought that was cool. Because I didn't plan on that. So, the story of the Night Witches begins with a woman named Marina Rascova, who was one of the few women in the VVS, or the Soviet Air Forces, before the war. On October 8th of 1941, Joseph Stalin, I'm sure y'all have heard of him, decided to deploy 3 women's Air Force units under the influence of Marina. This was unusual considering women were usually kept from combat because, you know, we're weak. One of the units deployed was the 588th Night Bomber Aviation Regiment, made up of women in their late teens, early 20s with prior flying experience who volunteered to be there. And I can't imagine volunteering to go to war as a woman in the 1940s. It blows my mind. The women of the 588th Regiment flew over 23,000 sorties. A sortie is an attack made by troops from a position of defense. That's a lot of attacks considering that the regiment was only active for a little over 3 years. Those were some busy ladies. Now you might want to sit down if you're not already because I'm about to throw a lot of numbers at you. The women accumulated a total of 28,676 hours of flight time. They dropped over 3,000 tons of bombs and over 26,000 incendiary shells, which are basically like fire bombs. They start fires. The bombs and shells damaged or completely destroyed 17 river crossings, 9 railways, 2 railway stations, 26 warehouses, 12 fuel depots, 176 armored cars, 86 firing points, and 11 searchlights. That's a lot of destruction. But don't worry, because they also flew 155 supply drops to Soviet forces, giving food and ammunition and everything they needed. So it's not all bad, I guess. I don't know about y'all, but when I picture a warplane, I think of Spitfires like in Dunkirk. But that was not the case with the Night Witches. They flew in wooden canvas Polikarpov U-2 biplanes, which were designed in 1928. These planes weren't even meant for war or for dropping bombs. They were initially intended to be used for flight training or crop dusting. Crop dusting. I haven't figured out editing yet, so I don't know how to get the pictures of the planes and like the actual video footage, like to put it here. So I'm just going to show you the pictures real quick. So, be right back. Welcome back. It was a mess, y'all. They could only carry 2 bombs at a time in those planes, so they would have to make 8 or more trips per night. And I know this is a bad comparison, but imagine taking 8 or more trips to carry groceries from your car to your house. They had to do that with bombs. Disgusting. Now I know what you're wondering, and no, the Night Witches not do magic, unless you count their talent as magic, which I do. One of their attack methods was to idle their engine as they got close to their target and then just glide to the point of release until they dropped their bomb. And this made it so that only the sound of the wind was left to reveal their location to their enemy, and the Germans compared them to witches whizzing by on their brooms. Now, in case me blowing through that made it seem nonchalant, these women, like gravity, fly their planes, their little crop duster planes, for them until they drop their bomb, and then they just start the engine back up again and fly away. And they volunteered to do this. I don't know what was going through their minds. But dang. In 1943, after being deployed for a little under a year, the 588th Night Bomber Aviation Regiment was honored with the Guards designation and was renamed the 46th Guards Night Bomber Aviation Regiment. The regiment was the most decorated female unit in the VVS, with 23 of its pilots receiving the Hero of the Soviet Union title. The first pilot in the regiment to receive that title was Yevdokia Nozal. She was also the first woman to receive it posthumously. And the regiment commander, Major Yevdokia Bershenskaya, Another Yevdokia. I've seen a lot of that name in my research, and I feel like that was the Russian Jessica of the 1940s. But Major Yevdokia Bershinskaya, probably saying that wrong, became the only woman to be awarded with the Order of the Suvorov. I don't know how to say it. It's Suvorov. Suvorov, I think. Major Bershinskaya also received the Order of the Red Banner, which was the highest award of Soviet Russia. So, pretty cool. These women flew harassment bombing missions, which were brutal. They would bomb their enemy randomly over a long period of time, making it hard for them to sleep, resupply, and just making them stressed overall, which, oddly enough, that's exactly how I felt in high school. The regiment also flew precision bombing missions, which the name pretty much explains what it is. They try to hit the target accurately. Now, I'm not okay with bombing. I don't agree with it. But if we are going to do it, I'm a little concerned that not all bombing is precision bombing. Like, we're only trying to hit the target accurately some of the time. I don't even have tea to sip on that one. I'm just confused, so. Now, before I wrap things up, I have a few little extra tidbits that I thought were really interesting. Number one, because of the weight of the bombs and them flying at low altitudes, because they were in crop dusters, these women didn't have any parachutes until 1944. The war ended in 45. So the whole time they had no parachutes. And again, like I've said so many times, because I can't wrap my head around it, they volunteered for this. Number two, a woman named Irina Sabrova flew more sorties than any other member of the regiment, coming in at 1,008. And that's out of 23,672 sorties in the regiment and 24,000 flown by the women in the BVS overall. Number three, before I start this, I'm surprised I didn't find more stories about men messing with the women, but there was one woman named Olga Yemshkaya who was flying at 10,000 feet when she discovered a mouse in her plane that had been put there by one of her male colleagues. Little rascals. She was more concerned about the mouse than the Germans she was fighting, so she took the time to hunt for the mouse and catch it and eject it from the plane. So, poor Mousie. I mean, poor Olga too, but she lived, so. And four, last but certainly not least, the world's only two fighter aces, Lydia Litvyak and Katya Budanova, came from the female BVS. They weren't members of the 588th Regiment, but that's still amazing, because they're the world's only female fighter aces. So, interesting. To wrap things up, the regiment deployed on June 12, 1942 and disbanded on October 15, 1945. A total of 261 women served in the regiment, with 32 of those women giving their lives. In short, these women were extraordinary and helped save a lot of people. They volunteered to put their lives on the line for their country and for the victims of the Holocaust. I have to imagine that as women in that period of time, they probably knew that they wouldn't get a lot of recognition for what they did. And I'm not sure how much they're talked about in Russia today, but I know that I had never heard of them until fairly recently. But nevertheless, I see them, and now you do too. So, beautiful. And that's the tea on history. Stay tuned for the very end, because I'll have some pictures of the women I've mentioned. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you learned something new. Let me know what you liked or didn't like, but please be respectful. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more, click the subscribe button. Thank you. I literally got down to the last drop. Last time I had to refill my cup with water. But boop. Perfect.